on vinyl and vision.
Hey folks, thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Vinyl and Vision, episode 24 with my very special guest, Hilary Jones. Hilary is a very talented local musician. She is currently in the band Alpha Error. I will be including some of her music spattered throughout the episode in the audio stream, somewhere near the middle and at the end. If you're watching the video, it'll be very at the beginning. There's some live footage I had taken of them performing at AS220, opening up for Oceans of the Moon and Psychic Graveyard. Very cool conversation. Just to let everybody know, I don't really want to talk about the whole pandemic thing that is going on, but I just want to let you guys know that I think that this sucks. Everybody is being affected by it, and so if you have the means, please do the best you can to support some of the artists that are suffering from this, that had to have their shows and tours canceled. Go out and support by buying some of their music from them through online vendors. Bandcamp currently, as of today, which probably not get this in time, but on March 20th is offering 100% of the proceeds to go directly to the artists instead of taking their percentage from the sale of any of their music. This is going to be ongoing, so let's just all do the best we can. Let's all keep some level heads and just support each other, help each other out, pass on all the good vibes you can, I guess. So you have some free time, so here's a podcast. Tune in and listen up. Hilary has also started her own podcast, so if you are looking for other things to get into, look up her podcast on all platforms where they are available. Midriff is what it's called. It discusses gender in the music business in general through, obviously music performance, recording, and even through some of the gear, music production gear-wise, let's just say. So it's kind of interesting stuff. It's very new, just started a little while ago. She only has about 4 episodes up as of right now, and looks like it's on a bi-weekly schedule. So subscribe to that, please, and do the same for me if you can. Do all those things you do with the internet is what we ask here. Like, rate, review, subscribe, comment, share, all the things you do with the internet. And our discussion today was mostly about the record PJ Harvey's Rid of Me, which is an excellent album, and I was very fortunate and thankful to have Hilary choose that one. Super cool stuff. Listen for that, and without further ado, here is the show.
So this is actually not my record. No, it's our drummer Meredith's record.
Oh, okay.
Which is funny though, because you can see that she got it at Siren Records, which is a record shop in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, that we actually played at one time when we were on tour. And she was like, I used to go to this record store when I was growing up or whatever, because she's from Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so that was interesting.
Is this really the UK copy?
I guess.
It just says made in England here.
I'm
curious.
honestly not sure.
I'll have to take a look. Well, thank her for lending it to you to bring it over today.
Yeah.
You didn't have a copy of this yourself?
I know, I don't have a copy.
No, that's fine. I mean, I feel like, do you feel like you've kind of been late to the vinyl game as far as like, when we grew up?
Yeah, I feel like
we're the same age, right?
Yeah, I just turned 40, so.
I'm turning 40 like in a few days.
Oh, look at that. See, yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like I just kind of didn't catch the boat in the way that others did.
Right. Well, it wasn't convenient for us growing up because, we were of the age, oh yeah, this is a UK copy. This is, we were the digital age, so everything was CDs for us. And
yeah, and my partner he's 46 and we have thousands of records at our house.
Yeah.
He was a DJ for like 13 years.
Oh.
But so I'm like, oh well, I've got access to all these records, but it's not always the same records that I would want to have. So
yeah, and that your personal copies are all his.
Yeah.
Do you have much of a collection yourself? Like anything?
Not a huge collection. I have a small collection. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I guess we'll get right into it considering it's already out here. But you chose the album PJ Harvey's "Rid of Me," which is her second album.
Yep.
So what's your experience with PJ Harvey and with this album?
So my first experience with PJ Harvey, as I can remember it, actually, is hearing it on like a college radio station. I think not probably until like 1995, when "To Bring You My Love" came out, and I remember hearing that song on the college radio station in my town at that time, when I was 15, and was pretty into that song in particular. And there was then the song "Come On Billy" from that record came out, and I ended up getting the record, listened to it a bunch. And that record in particular, I feel like I was like, this is really cool. And there's like, but it's more cool. It's cool in a way where it's like, this is super weird, and more like kind of more in the experimental realm, I guess. And then I went backwards, and then I got this record, and then I was like, oh, this is what I wanted. This is what I wanted the whole time. Yeah. And so, so this record, I got this and listened to it over and over and over again. And I think for me, this is the rock. I was like, oh, this is a rock record, and I think especially then, and probably also, let's be honest, sometimes now, I'm like, that's what I was looking for. And so, I think that's how I was sort of drawn into this record. I was like, oh, it has like the power.
Right. So 95 was your first experience with PJ Harvey, and so you were about 15.
Yep.
I'm not familiar, like, to be very honest with you, I have never listened to PJ Harvey. Like, so when you gave me that initial list, and I was like looking through all the names, I'm like, okay, well, I know most of these. Yeah. And even if I don't know these records specifically, at least I know the artist, I have some kind of familiarity with it. And I've been meaning to listen to her for a while because everyone, speaks so highly of her music. So, when you finally made your decision, I was like, okay, cool, perfect. Now, because I want to listen to this. So I think that this is a great opportunity for me to hear her, considering you're making me listen to this one first. And unfortunately, I didn't have a lot of time because I wanted to kind of explore the rest of the catalog, because I know that there must be some meldings going on. Like, she kind of changes a little bit. She kind of has a little bit of a variation in her abilities. Yep. And then the band changed too. Right. So the first two records, this being the second, is just the trio. Rob Ellis on drums and Steve Vaughn on bass. And it's pretty much like a powerful rock record. Yeah. And you can tell it just sounds like it. Also produced by Steve Albini, which is amazing. And, pretty cool to have him listen to one of his other records that he's produced, because we all are very familiar with Steve Albini and the work he's done. And this is pre-In Utero for the other kids our age that might not make the association.
Chronologically, it's helpful context.
Yeah. And from what I realized too, reading some research on it, he actually gave the band Nirvana this record as a reference point, saying like, this is what we did at Pachyderm Studios as well. Right, and
I think that the fact that it was also at Pachyderm Studios in Minnesota, I think is just interesting as well. So happening in the same place that In Utero was recorded too.
Right. Yeah, and so I did a little research on that studio too, which is cool. From what he had described, he said it's a really great studio because it had so many different rooms you could use. So depending on the sound that you would want for whatever, item you're recording, whatever, instrument or the vocal, there was a number of different options that he had.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Also haven't gone too far into the catalog of records that were recorded at Acadurm, but there were definitely some amazing ones, especially in the 90s grunge era.
I don't know the other ones, and so I remember because I was super into Nirvana when I was that age, obviously, as many were.
Yeah.
And so I knew everything about them at that point, and so I knew about Pachyderm from that, but I actually don't know the other records that were recorded there. So when I saw that this was recorded there, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I just didn't make that connection. So
yeah, it's one of those things you don't really think about. I don't think. I mean, unless you're reading through all the linear notes and it kind of sticks out to you. But Soul Asylum did a record there.
That makes sense.
I don't know which one. I don't think it was the famous one.
The
Grave
Diggers Union
something. Yeah, I can't remember either. I think it was maybe one before that, possibly even on the SST Records days. Who else? Babes in Toyland did their first major.
They're also one of my favorite bands of all time. I almost did Babes in Toyland, but I was like, nobody wants to listen to Babes in Toyland except me and like 20 other people who are like super. I don't mean that in any bad way at all. I just know that it's a very specific taste. Yeah. But they were one of my very favorites.
Yeah, I got into them around that time too, actually. Yeah. I think it was probably only that one record I listened to.
Fontanelle?
Possibly, yeah. I think it was their major label debut. So I didn't really I don't really know a lot about them, but I remember liking it.
Yeah, they had a whole book done about them, like a biography about them that I read extensively when I was that age. Yeah, I was like obsessed with Babes in Toyland. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so around that same age, I mean, this is a crazy time for music.
Yeah.
Thinking about it now, like just thinking about, these bands that we're mentioning that happen to all be around that same time. As far as all the women rock bands, I think there's actually a pretty good portion of them, because now we just mentioned Babes in Toyland, PJ Harvey, another big one at the time, L7.
Yeah.
That was actually my first rock show I've ever went to.
Oh, awesome. See, I never actually got to see L7, and it was something that really, I mean, I know they're back playing again, but it was I was very angry at the time. I remember driving to Minneapolis. I grew up in Fargo, North Dakota.
Yeah.
And driving to Minneapolis, and I think I was like 20 or 19 or something, to go see them, because they weren't playing anywhere around us at all. But they were on tour at that time. They were playing at First Avenue, and we tried to get in, and they wouldn't let us in. And I was so bummed.
Oh, man.
Yeah, anyway.
That sucks. How was the music scene out like in Fargo? So what time frame were you living there?
I lived there until I was 22, till I graduated college.
Okay,
undergrad.
So you kind of experienced some of the music scene there?
Yeah. So it was very, as many would be surprised, that it's actually really noise rocky. So when I was, Godhead Silo and Hammerhead are from Fargo, which it's like a AMREP kind of, thing. They, super, super noise rock. And so that when I was growing up, it was like, everything was about that, like Carp, like bands like that. Okay. Were a really, really big deal when I was growing up. And so all the bands in town kind of sounded like that, which is awesome. And it was hilarious to me because leaving there in 2002 to move here for grad school, and coming to the scene like right as Lightning Bolt had just sort of blown up and everything. And they're not the same type of music really, but like the noise adjacent kind of thing. I feel like I was like, it's extending here.
Yeah. So you felt kind of at home.
I felt very comfortable with that. Yeah.
That's cool. So you moved for 22. I imagine that was for schooling, graduate school.
Yeah.
So you started playing music at what age?
I started playing when I was 14 and then started playing in bands when I was 16.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you actually played out in Fargo.
Very much so, yeah.
So what was your first band?
It was a band called Telepathetic, which I actually played in for my entire time living there, basically.
Oh.
And it was very funny. The drummer was really into Pantera and like more like metal, and I was into like Bikini Kill and like Babes in Toyland. And it was kind of like a meld of those, but it was like always a rock trio, and we had a couple different bass players that came through at different points. But and I was playing guitar and singing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Guitar is your primary instrument?
I started with guitar, and then I've gone back and forth over the years,
Yeah.
playing bass in a few bands as well.
Right, right. Yeah, and so your discography ranges from what in Providence? Because how many bands have you been in Providence?
Well, so the very first band I was in here was I was in a band called Electra Complex that was very short lived that I played
Okay.
guitar in, and that was actually with Melanie Fust, who plays drums in Gertrude Atherton now, and a woman named Marcella who I met through ASG20. And then I was in Sweet Thieves for probably 5 years and played bass in that band and did some singing. And then Arking, and that was only for probably 2 years. And then Pour Paint for like a million years. I don't know, 8 years. And then...
8 years, really?
Is that right? Maybe it was 7 years.
It's
like 20. No, it's fine. Like, I think it was like 2010 or 2011. To like a year or two ago. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So.
And Alpha Air is the newest outfit that you're in now.
Yep.
And it just started.
Yep.
When did you guys officially?
We started playing probably about a year ago, and we just started playing. We started playing with our singer about a year ago, and Gus and Meredith and I had played together for a little bit before that, doing some of the like songwriting stuff prior to to bring Rosie on. We wanted to have something stable to to present to a potential singer. So yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So you didn't know who you wanted to sing for the band until this woman Rosie came along?
Yeah, well, so Meredith and I had been obviously we played drum. Meredith played drums in Pour Paint, and then I had played guitar in that band, and so we had been playing together for a long time, and we ended up, and our singer had to stop singing for a while because just like she does audiobooks for a living, and singing loudly can not be great for your voice. Yeah. So so that was it was a real bummer. And but we at some point we're like, we gotta keep playing some music because we felt I don't know how you feel. I feel when I'm not playing music, I get real stressed out.
Yeah.
So we were like, okay, let's get together and play some music. And she had run into our friend Gus, and Gus had played in Arking with me. He played drums in that band and plays bass in this band. And he was like, I'll come, can I come play with you or whatever? And so we all ended up playing together. It was really fun, and that was great. And so we just decided to keep doing that for a little while until we put some songs together. And then we were like, what are we going to do for singing? We were like, you want to sing? We've all sung in the bands before, but I think all of us were like, not it.
Yeah.
So, so we, I knew Rosie through Girls Rock, which is now RIOT, Rhode Island.
Right.
And thought, it'd be fun to have her in the band.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know her very well. Has she been in any other bands?
So she's pretty new to town.
Okay.
She's only been here a couple of years. She plays guitar and sings in a band called Tawanda.
Okay. I've heard of it.
Yeah, they're kind of like a heavier, I don't know. Some people call it doom. I don't know. It's more like, I don't know. Sludgy, yeah. Sludge sounds good. I'll go with that.
Okay,
yeah.
that was a
They're great.
wild guess. I haven't heard.
If you haven't heard Tawanda, I highly recommend checking them out. So
cool. Well, I definitely will, especially at this time in our I don't know what they even call it. This epidemic we're going through, everyone being at home and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a lot of time to listen to things and explore things and
right.
Who knows what? Try some new hobbies. So
that's right.
So speaking of Girls Rock Rhode Island, now RIOT RI, you were a founding member of that?
Yep. And that started in 2009, and then I stepped away in August of 2019.
Yeah, and you stepped away just because you're too busy, or you just like it?
It was 10 years, and it felt like, I was like, I've been doing this for a long time. Organizationally, I think we're at a good spot. We've been doing a lot of like anti-oppression work. It seemed like we were like getting to a point where it made sense to like, have some other folks come in to run the organization. And both like personally and organizationally, I guess. Like I, have a 4-year-old, and sometimes it's hard to be able to work volunteer hours when you have a 4-year-old, because that's outside of work time. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I know. I have
Yeah.
2 children myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, doing anything extracurricular
Right.
is kind of like asking a lot.
Yes.
And you're very busy yourself. Obviously, you kind of work for yourself full time.
Now I do, yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm teaching at RISD right now, one class, and then I'm working for myself. So, yeah.
And then what else is the thing that's sucking up your time? Your podcast, of course. Yes.
Yes, that.
Midriff
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
So how did that come about?
You know, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and
Yeah.
so I just was like, this is really cool. Like, I just listened to them a lot, and I was like, it would be fun to do that. But, I just was like, I don't have time, and I don't know exactly what I want to do yet. So, when I finished, my role at RIOT, I was like, okay, this might be something that I could get into, and it took me a bit to kind of formalize exactly what I wanted to do. But then once I got that kind of figured out, I was like, all right, I'm just gonna ask some people and see how it goes, and here we are. So
cool.
yeah.
Cool. So how's the reaction been so far? Because I know it's very new. You only have 3 episodes out. No, 4 episodes out.
4
now.
episodes. Yeah. So very new. I just started in January, and reaction's been really good. So it's been nice to hear that. I mean, nobody's been like, this is terrible. So which I wouldn't necessarily anticipate, but who knows?
It's bound to happen. The more people you reach.
Yep, eventually. So so I mean, it's an interesting thing where it's like the talking about gender, talking about music gear and music generally, and it's mostly folks who are musicians, but also I'm bringing on some folks who are in the music gear industry or the music industry generally, and so it's been interesting to have like different folks' perspectives on what their experiences have been like, and how to improve things. So
right.
Yeah.
As far as gender and equality is concerned,
yeah,
you mean?
yeah, yeah, and diversity more broadly for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm not very well versed in the terminology, so if I say
It's
anything
fine.
wrong, by all means, feel free to correct me.
Sure.
So that's great though. So you feel like the RIOT RI was kind of almost an immediate inspiration to starting the podcast?
It felt like a natural extension, and I feel like all of the stuff that I've kind of moved on to since then feels like a natural extension of the work that I was doing there. So like the work there, if folks are unfamiliar with RIOT or Girls Rock camps more broadly, there's one in pretty much every major city. They're all over the world at this point. There's like 7 in Sweden, there's one in Peru, there's one in Brazil, there's one in Japan, they're all over the place. So there are, basically the point of it is that you're helping folks to, or helping them help themselves to empower themselves through music, and using that as a tool for self-expression, but also for social justice for a variety of different things. So making change broadly in themselves and in society.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the main point, and it's done through camps, it's done through programming. Folks basically come in, they learn an instrument, they join a band, they write an original song, and then they perform that 5 days later, with more than 50% of folks never having played before. So they're basically like, I've never touched a guitar before, and then like 5 days later they're like, look at my new song with my new band of people that I've never met before, and I'm going to be on stage. Exactly.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah, and it's not like other camps where there's also like, okay, we're going to learn, it's AC/DC camp or something, like that's not what this is about. This is about people writing for themselves. It's also, we do a lot of workshops and things too, so there's topics range anywhere from, privilege and oppression to body image to healthy relationships. It's a variety of things. So those workshops then provide the context for the self-expression that folks are engaging in throughout the week at camp.
Okay.
So yeah.
So do you feel like the young Hilary, the 14-year-old Hilary, wishes that she had a camp like that to go to?
For sure. Yeah. There were not a lot of other like cis girls around playing
Rock
music
music.
in my town.
Yeah.
So it would have been nice to have that experience. It felt a little bit lonely at the time, but so I think most of the folks involved wish that they had that when they were younger.
Yeah. Well, you want to put this record on?
Let's listen to a record.
When's the last time you listened to this? I imagine you listened to it recently.
I listened to it in preparation.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, this is good. Not that I ever doubted it, but I was just like, oh man.
And so this is a very cool pressing too, because it's actually from the UK, so I'm assuming that this is probably an original. So for me, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm in the record
Yeah.
selling business, and so this is kind of like, oh, this is actually probably a valuable record.
Meredith is a big collector, so
Yeah, that's your drummer, Meredith?
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever met her formally. I've seen her around a lot, of course.
Yep.
I'm gonna have to thank her. Thank you, Meredith, for letting us listen to this record.
Yeah.
Sharing it with everybody else too.
Yeah.
Let's get a little brush just in case. I'll be very delicate with it, I swear. Yeah, it's funny. So, from some of the research that I had done, it seems that she, even as a young child, she's always had this, I guess maybe a feeling of disconnect or just, she's always kind of associated herself or felt for herself that she was more masculine, like she always wanted to be a boy, which I think comes through in her music and even in her depiction of herself, like her physical appearance. I think, well, at times she
Goes back
also
and forth,
changes.
yeah.
She goes from very like feminine and kind of like wearing a dress and looking very feminine, makeup, handbag, all that stuff, to really stripped down and like, I don't know what you call it as far as how you dress.
And I mean, it seems like more androgynous or like masculine or something like that at different times, and it's interesting how that goes along with the particular record or whatever at that particular time. Like has a good attention to the presentation, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because, as you know, a lot of the stuff that she's, and it bums me out because she does not identify as a feminist, but no, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And I think that it bums me out in a way where I'm just like, okay, I understand, because you just like there are a number of folks that I know who I feel like are in many ways like embodying and engaging in feminist work that don't identify, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. It just means that they haven't read a couple of books where they think that somebody might think that that's important, that they should identify as such, and that's fine. But I don't know. I think that she clearly has like a fairly intense analysis of gender, even though that she's you know might specifically deny that or say that she's not engaging in that type of analysis, or that it's very like, you know, my music could be for anybody, like, and I think that's true. But also I think that there are definitely pieces of it that specifically speak to like sexuality and I don't know, just like the power involved in sexuality and femininity in particular. And when she does engage in some of the presentation around feminine, like her kind of like high femme, like lots of makeup, like that kind of thing, to me that kind of spoke to me. I don't present myself that way, obviously, but like but I do think like one of the things that I'm kind of drawn to and that I try to present is just that like you can be feminine and also be powerful at the same time. And those two things can coexist, and I feel like that is represented in her music in many spaces and in her performances.
From the little bit that I've seen, because I've tried to check out some of the videos, tried to check out some live performance, and I would say that sounds right on. Like you would know better than me, I think, just because I need more time with it. But that kind of brought up an interesting idea to me. So the idea of this female performing rock music, you're saying the look of it, the what is it, the uber
presence,
femme?
high femme,
the high femme. You don't present yourself that way. From what I remember of like Pour Paint, let's just use as an example. There's something there, like in that realm too, like the artwork for the records, like the lipstick kiss, right? As the central image, basically, and used in the name of Pour Paint. The name alone, Pour Paint, it definitely evokes a sense, a certain feeling, I suppose, you know. And then your performances too were more along the lines of this, you know, very hard-edged, loud rock. Reba was the singer, right? And she has a very strong presence and a strong voice. A lot of shrill screaming kind of, also can do the sensual moaning type of thing that you can kind of hear through some of this. So so you kind of, so I can see the influence of this on you and some of the bands that you've been. I mean, that's one of the examples. I mean, I don't know Arsing very well.
Yeah, so arcing was, it was, and you're right, like I think that is all stuff that is very much present in Hort Paint's, both music and like performance style. And I'm thinking, I guess I'm like, I don't present myself that way in the day to day. Like I would definitely present myself femme, like I wear skirts all the time or whatever, but like I'm not like consistently like appearing that way. But in our performances, that was something that we tried to convey pretty purposefully, and would dress wearing, we wore like slips.
Right. And
part of the purpose of wearing slips was not to necessarily present as hypersexual, but to say like, we're going to be hypersexualized by viewers and audience members probably anyway, so and so just to be like, let's just do it and like get on with it and move on to the next thing, so that we can not have that be the major point of discussion. So
PJ Harvey does not address herself as such. Being a woman in the music industry, and I mean she's very successful, but. And she kind of took off real fast too. Well,
so this is the thing that comes up sometimes, right? So people decide not to identify as feminists for a couple of reasons. So one of them is that there's a lot of stigma attached to the term, and they don't want to be identified with that stigma. They think that like people are feminists are like bra burning and like hate men or whatever, and that's not the case. I mean, obviously some super separatists folks might want to, think that it's better to be separate from men, but most, 99% of folks are not in that realm necessarily, I would say.
There are extremes to all categories.
Right, and I think a lot of folks, myself included, would say that like the patriarchy negatively affects men as well, and so that men could actually benefit from feminism in a variety of different ways, and have benefited from feminism in a variety of ways.
I could see that.
Yeah, so like saying, like men could actually, the fact that men are able to like express their emotions ever, for example, that is, because of feminism. The fact that like men are able to like be attentive fathers and have a relationship with their child in that way, like that's because of feminism, and that feminists would advocate for men to have connections with their kids. Anyway, so I could go on and on about that, but so the other reason why a lot of folks don't identify with feminists is because they're like, well, I worked really hard to get to where I am, and I pulled myself up by my bootstraps, and had to deal with whatever sexism occurred there, and that's just what life is, and if I had to do it, then you have to do it too. And that's, I'm assuming, probably where she's coming from, and they, some people are like, well, if you separate men and women, or you talk about gender, you're making it worse, and that's kind of, that's another argument that you see come up sometimes, and I have encountered a number of folks, especially, not all older female musicians, but a number of folks that I've encountered through the years, that have that perspective. We're just like, well, like this is just what you do.
Right.
And I had it so much worse than you do, and you're calling yourself a feminist, and I don't consider myself as such. And so, which is, that's their perspective, but it's also, why wouldn't you want it to be better for the people who go after you?
Right.
Like that doesn't make sense to me.
It's almost kind of a selfish stance. Slightly. I mean, I'm not calling them selfish.
No, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
But even like people like Chrissy Hind, for example, like I love the Pretenders, but she is not on board, for example. And you would think that given her experience as like someone who's really like pushing boundaries or whatever, she would get it, but does not get it.
Well, because she wants to, like you were saying, she feels that all women or people of what is that called? The
trans non-binary.
Well, trans non-binary people of I keep on wanting to say minority. It's not minority, but of smaller classes. What is that called exactly? Why can't I think of the words right now?
I mean, like oppressed groups.
Oppressed groups.
Yeah.
Yes. She wants them to kind of like learn it for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so I can kind of understand that. I mean, I kind of see it like our generation is very strange because we're like kind of helicopter parents,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, I don't know if you feel that way about yourself.
Sometimes, for sure.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I have this conversation with my wife frequently because we have children and our children are older than yours now, so we are experiencing a different level
Mm-hmm.
of problems,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, looking to what do we expect, what's going to happen to our children, because we of course want them to experience nothing but you know, rainbows and happiness for the rest
Right.
of their lives, but it's not going to happen.
Right.
You know, they're going to experience some kind of, you know, troubles in their life, anywhere from, you know, bullying to, you know, getting picked on and beat up and you know, whatever. And,
Yep.
and I was,
Mm-hmm.
I imagine you were to some degree too. And that's probably like where that stance comes from, right? Where it's just like you kind of have to kind of learn these hard lessons in your life.
Yep.
Because I tell my wife that too, and it's like, oh, our son is on the autism spectrum. He's
Mm-hmm.
going to have difficulties his whole life. There will be people that are going to pick on him. He needs to develop a kind of a thicker skin and learn to kind of be a little tough and more assertive with himself. And he is actually now, which is really great.
Yeah.
But so it's kind of like that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two different ways of looking at that. Like, so if we're thinking about an individual person versus thinking about the entire society, right? So it's like, yes, we have to provide someone with the tools to be able to overcome challenges as they arise, and you know, you want them to be ready, and you don't, you know, and part of being a person is overcoming challenges, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but thinking about like collectively as a culture, how would our lives be different if, you know, maybe our challenges were different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or fewer, or what would we be able to achieve if we didn't experience certain levels of challenge, right?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of my thought on it. So I'm not saying like we need to remove all challenges, but I think as far as like someone like Chrissy Hind or somebody like having that kind of viewpoint, I don't know. To me, I just think it makes sense that you want to make things like better,
Sure.
and by making things better, you know, like you acknowledge that they were a problem in the first place. So, and not just say like, I'm going to join this old boys club and I got in, and you need to do what you need to do to get in.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like, how about not making it a boys club and everybody can join? Cool.
Right.
Done.
She's just one of those strange writers where it just has that ability to kind of like make these things, and I don't know if it's by accident or if it's like completely thought out.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know either. And it was something that I really didn't pick up for a long time, and then I was like, oh, that's what's happening here. Like, this is very, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But is it? Yeah. But I know I would never think of her music as being like mathy or complicated in that way, but it definitely has that element for sure.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like I said, I'm gonna have to listen back to a lot of the other music, a lot of the other records of hers, and kind of get a feel for, you know, understand her songwriting better in general, which I don't really do. I don't like to overanalyze music too much.
Yeah.
I like to, you know, I like that if it grabs me, it grabs me, and, you know, if I enjoy it, listen to it as much as I want to listen to it.
Yeah.
But I do find it interesting. I mean, you know, now that I'm older and I can kind of like, I have a little better understanding of music. I'm definitely not by any means like learned to any extent, but she's definitely fascinating. She's definitely very interesting, and I thank you for choosing this record, because had you not, I mean, I don't know when I would have finally got around to listening to it, because she keeps on coming up these days to me. She keeps on coming up, and you know, I always think about it because there's a lot of things I missed. You know, I think that there's a lot of music I missed.
I think that's true for everyone.
Yeah, so it's always nice to have someone suggest something that, you know, kind of reminds you. It's just like, oh yeah, I wanted to explore that, and I wanted to experiment with that and see what it's like. So this is a great example of that, and a great reason why doing this show is so fun. Because I get to explore and experiment with these things, and on vinyl, which is very nice because the sound quality is pretty good.
For sure. Yeah, there's an artist who has been out for the last, I don't know, 5+ plus years, Anna Calvi, who for some reason no one has heard of that I know.
I don't know.
And she is one of the few people who I'm like, oh, like as far as like musical lineage,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, you know, like there's like definitely this connection. Like it definitely has like a vibe of PJ Harvey and like a Nick Cave kind of thing. And her first record just floors me every time. And she's just like a amazing guitarist, but has the like super open. This is what I was thinking about, like the super open. It's more polished than an Albini recording, but I feel like one of the things that I like about that record and about this record is the roominess of the recording, and the reverb, I guess, as well. But like you know, like, talking about like his mic placement and things like that, like he's just, I think, able to somehow utilize room mics in such a way to get this like big feel, which I think is so cool.
Yeah, and so now who is this performer?
So she
performs solo?
She performs solo with a small band usually.
Okay.
And is British and is just like has like a very dark but like very just a beautiful voice, very like intense musically in a way that PJ Harvey is. You know, like has the quiet, like can do the very quiet, sparse, and then like explode into something like really intense. And I really appreciate that about the dynamics of that.
Yeah, and so she's never been in a band or this.
Not to my knowledge. I mean, I don't know a super ton about her, but that record is amazing. It's one of my favorite records out of the last 10 years or so probably.
Okay.
So
sounds cool. I'll check it out if you want to send me a link or something.
I was just thinking. I've been thinking about it a lot lately. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, so the podcast is Midriff is your podcast, which obviously we want some people to kind of go there and check it out, subscribe, listen, rate, review. They do all those things.
Yes, that's what you should do, right?
Yeah, it's so funny talking about these things.
I know. That's what you got to say.
Yeah, I know. I guess so. I was not thinking about it at all. It's funny how you did research and obviously to kind of think about, oh, how do I do this? Like, how do I go about like starting one, and like how did the logistics of doing it? And I didn't do that at all. Like my friend Toomey also has his own podcast, and he researched it for years, according to him. And I'm just like, oh, I just started.
Well, part of it I think was me delaying because I didn't know how to edit or like record hardly at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had never edited.
Oh.
Basically ever.
Not even like recording like music?
No.
Oh.
So this has all been very new to me, and so like I was like, well, if I can just delay myself by researching every other aspect that I feel like I have some control over, this, as opposed to this other scarier part, which is the recording and editing, then I can, I don't know. It was just a good way to get my brain in the spot where I feel like, okay, I have enough information. Finally, I can move forward. And
yeah. Well, for me, I always feel like, even like being in a band, and it's just like you just kind of have to start doing it. Like,
well, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like as soon as you start, like maybe you mess something up, maybe you don't do something correct or whatever, but it's all a learning process, and it's all about building as well. So not only are you building your catalog, kind of building up your show, your material, but you're figuring out what you do want to do, what you don't want to do.
Yeah.
And it's a learning experience in front of people, basically.
Yes.
So I can, I don't know, I like it. I like what you're doing. I think that it's a good show, and I hope that it gets even more exposure than it already has.
Yeah, you too. This is super fun. I'm glad that you're doing this.
Well, thank you.
I feel like it's such a nice. It's also like kind of an intimate thing where you're like learning so much about people's connections to their like musical development.
It's very exposing. I realized, and it's kind of something that I just stumbled into because I didn't really think of it. I didn't think it through, and it's really funny because I'm starting to see all these people that make music and like find out where they're coming from and why they're making music the way they're making it, which is kind of like an interesting like development from doing the show that I didn't think about.
Totally.
And I love it because it's like, you're saying it's intimate, and it's true. It is intimate. It's very exposing, I think, and I almost feel like is that too much to ask? Like when I asked you, it's like, pick a record. Like I don't think of that as like a big ask. Like it doesn't seem like a big deal, but then when you start to really think about it, you're like, what is it?
Like one record.
Yeah.
Like I think that's the hard thing, right? So
right. Narrowing it down to
one record was hard. Yeah, because it's like, in one record that's like representing all of your musical background, like, which is,
right.
Obviously that's not where it has to go, but like.
No.
But it feels that way a little bit.
I'm sure it does, yeah. I mean, like, I think about it myself even at this point now, because I'm just like, what album would I choose?
What album would you choose?
I haven't thought about it.
I thought you said you did.
No, I
report back.
I really, so the problem you had, I think, and the problem everyone has when I ask them is that I think you think about it in a couple of different ways.
Right.
You think about, okay, well, what's the record that made me want to play an instrument?
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, what's the one that, like, I was exposed to that kind of, like, had the most impact on my life? Like, or maybe even so, which one do I just really love the most? Like, which one do I feel like I can put on constantly?
Right.
And it's always, like, the go-to album. I think I want people to think of it more like what made them want to do what they're doing, whether it be a musician or an artist. But for me, an album I really like, and I don't own it on vinyl right now, is The Zombies Odyssey and Oracle. Because I'll tell you the story behind it, is that I got turned on to it probably around like 2000, probably 2000, somewhere between like 99 and 2000. I was working at the cable car, and my good friend Jed Marshall was working there, and he was a great musical influence to me. I loved his band Plymouth Rock. I loved the way that he played, and he had a great record collection. And he would just he would occasionally ask me, he was like, have you heard of this band yet? I'm like, no, I haven't. He's like, you should listen to this. So that was one of those bands, because he told me to listen to it, and I don't remember how I listened to it at first. I guess I must have just gone out and bought the CD. And that was one of those records that I just listened to for multiple times every day.
Yeah.
Like literally every day I was putting it on, like basically on repeat.
Yeah. Keep it in your car, don't move it.
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing.
Basically, yeah. So I don't know. Maybe that's what I would choose. Maybe.
I think that's a good choice.
But I don't know if it's influenced my music though.
Well, so that's the thing, right? Because I feel like there's a lot of things where I'm like, this is a more direct lineage, like makes a lot of sense. Like, oh, this sounds like the music that I'm playing.
Right.
Whereas there's other, or like influences, there's the way that I play, then there's the way the band sound that I'm in, versus like, what actually just like caught me and made me want to play, which I feel like can be a variety of different things. Like also I feel like there's a difference between wanting to play an instrument and wanting to be in a band. Like all of those things are all kind of wrapped up together in my mind.
Right.
But I know what you're saying. Yeah. Like, and that, but that is a really good record.
Right. So that's funny. So as the eldest, what got you into music? Like, how did you find music?
Well, I had a friend whose brother was in one of the like local band, like noise rock bands. And this is after like God Had Silo and Hammerhead had moved on, but they were in this band called Bosk that I loved, and he would kind of like feed her music sometimes, and that's where I got that Violent Femmes tape, their self-titled tape. Nevermind, I got that way by a tape from him. Probably some other things I'm not thinking of, but like that's when I got the Nevermind tape, and then I just was like listening until it wore out kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's always struck me as strange, because like, for me it was easy because I have all older brothers.
Yeah, you're like, oh, it's just right here.
Yeah. They basically gave everything to me. So yeah, as the eldest, it's a little strange.
Yeah, I definitely had to investigate. So I had to like pay a lot of attention and try and figure out where things came from, and eventually did the whole like Kill Rock Stars, like what's in the Kill Rock Stars catalog thing, like that kind of stuff, and order it from the local record store.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what's the plan with Alpha Era now? I mean, with all the cancellations and closings of things now, I mean, I don't know if you had anything coming up that's been canceled or...
We have a show April 11th
okay.
in Boston, but I don't know what's going to happen. Probably will get canceled, I'm
this
guessing.
whole thing will blow over by then, I hope. Yes, fingers crossed.
I don't know. Yeah.
April 11th in Boston?
Yeah.
Where at?
I don't even know the name of it. It's very funny. It's at some place. It's like the... it's like a Elks Club, you know, like
a hall?
Like a hall.
Like a VFW post?
Kind of like a VFW.
Okay.
I can't remember the name of it, but I saw the name of it and I was like, this is hilarious.
Because it's like VFW post number 115 or something, right?
Yeah, it's not even that. It was some other very specific thing, like related to a particular union or something. I'm not sure. Anyway, so, but I was thinking about it mostly because I was like, oh, I haven't played at a hall in a very long time. And I'm like, 3/4 of this band are over 40. So it's just funny to be like, you know, like I used to set up lots of shows there. Right. I went to tons of shows at halls in Fargo. And, but it just feels funny to play there as a older person,
right.
I guess, or middle-aged, not older, but like older than the
older
people
than
playing.
You're older than you used to be.
Yes, exactly.
So April 11th, anything else after that, or for now?
I think that's the last thing we have lined up at this exact moment. So yeah.
And you have a website, I assume?
We have a Bandcamp and a Facebook.
Okay.
And Instagram. Mm-hmm.
Alpha Era on all the platforms.
All the platforms.
And Midriff Podcast on all the platforms as well.
Yep.
All the audios.
All the audios. Audios.
Great. Sounds good. Well, best of luck to you with both of those things, and I hope to see you again soon.
Cool. Thank you. This is fun.
Thank you.